So you'll probably get a little pop-up saying you're being recorded, but now we're being recorded. So welcome again. My name is Jamie Vbach, and I am the Will County Director for the Conservation Foundation. Just want to welcome you all to this webinar, whether you're watching it live or the recording for later. So finishing up our upcoming webinars on Thursday, May 14th, we have Planting a Pollinator Garden. This is another really popular one, so just be aware there is a possibility we may run into capacity issues again there. We're working on trying to fix that though. It's going to take a bigger Zoom license basically. So, and then also on Monday, May 18th, we have Turning Your Neighborhood Pond into Habitat. So I'm going to go ahead and put those links in the chat as well. Okay, and so now on with our program. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. There we go. All right. So yes, that is me, Jamie Vbach, and my email address is there, phone number, which obviously we are working from home right now. I do get messages emailed to me if you do happen to call, but email is generally the easier way to get a hold of me. So we are the Conservation Foundation. We are a 501c3 and we've been around since 1972. And the whole point of why we do what we do is because it improves the health of our communities. Yes, we're preserving habitat for animals and plants, but it's also the health of the planet, the people, the plants, the animals. We want to help to protect the environment because it's good for us. We're also an accredited land trust, which may not mean a whole lot to you, but trust me when I say it is a very big deal. Basically says that the national organization has looked over our records and sees that we are doing things right from a financial standpoint, ethically. Our organization is being run well, and we're doing what we should be doing to take care of the land that we have. So you can see here, each of those little dots represents a piece of land that we have helped to protect in various ways. So we are mostly based in Kane, Kendall, DuPage, and Will counties, as I mentioned, but we do also branch out into other counties as things pop up, anything that happens that we might be able to help with. So we've got 43 conservation easements, nearly 200 parcels, 35,000 acres. So we've been around for a while, and we've been helping to protect land in Illinois as best we can. So again, as I mentioned, conserving open space is good for us. It helps to preserve our quality of life, our water quality, air quality, habitat for wildlife. It's really good for kids. As any of you with kids may know, they need to get outside right now. They're cooped up in the house and they need to get outside to run around and play. And there's just a whole slew of studies out right now showing why being outside is good for us. So one of the previous webinars we did was called Nature RX. I highly suggest you watch it if you are interested in that sort of thing. It talks a lot about the studies that are out there about why nature is good for us and how that has been studied and determined. And it's just a responsibility that we have to future generations so they can enjoy all these wonderful things that we have right now. Since I've been home, I have really been enjoying watching birds in my backyard. I got my Oriole feeder up, and so far I've had Orioles on it, as well as a catbird that has been eating the jelly and enjoying that as well. Got my hummingbird feeder up. I think I saw a hummingbird in my yard, though he didn't stay I didn't see him at the feeder. So we'll see how that goes. So we're going to be talking a lot about native plants. And why do we want to use native plants? Well, for one thing, it saves us time and money, right? When you have native plants, they have nice, long, deep roots, which we'll talk about in a minute. Those long, deep roots help the plant to take care of itself during our hot, dry summers, or our super cold winters, or our very wet springs. They're used to those conditions. So we don't have to baby them and protect them from what's our natural environment. We don't have to fool it into thinking it's in wherever its native habitat is supposed to be. because they're here. They've adapted to our conditions. They're used to it. They're also good for our birds and our butterflies, other pollinators, all of our animals. They're used to these plants. These are the plants they're familiar with. These are their familiar comfort foods, you might think of it as. And so when we plant those things, we encourage them to come to our yard. So the butterflies will come, they'll lay their eggs on whatever their host plant is. Those caterpillars will grow up, and guess what? Birds will come to eat those caterpillars. Not all of them, obviously, but caterpillars are a great source of food, especially for baby birds. Their little soft, nutrient-packed bodies are perfect for cramming down the throats of little baby birds. I've seen studies that show that they are more nutrient dense than beef. So, I mean, these things are great food sources. And so by having native plants, you're encouraging those insects to come, and then the birds are going to come and eat them. So now not only do you have pretty butterflies, you've got the birds, you've got whole ecosystems, and now your yard is a part of the ecosystem, not apart from the ecosystem. And then those long roots also help to channel down through our really heavy clay soils that we have here and get that water down into the ground rather than sheeting off the surface like it usually does, going into ponds and streams and causing flooding. So allowing the water to infiltrate, to go down into the soil, helps to prevent flooding downstream. So I love this graphic because you can see here some examples of native species of plants versus non-native species of plants. And even though they're just kind of sketches, they give you an idea that these things are really very similar in appearance. You know, you always hear, oh, native plants, they're just weeds. No, they're not. They're actually quite beautiful flowers. And they're even better than some of these invasive exotic things that we like to plant instead. Kentucky bluegrass, not native to Kentucky, not native to Illinois. As a matter of fact, not even native to North America. It actually comes from the Middle East, which makes sense if you look at the root system. It's a very shallow net-like root system that you would need if you were trying to hold on to sand. Well, as we've said, we don't have sandy soils here, with a few exceptions. We actually have very heavy clay soils. So that's why we have to spend all summer watering and aerating and fertilizing our grass, because we're trying to fool it into thinking it's still in its native habitat when it's really not. If we were to instead plant buffalo grass, which I would dare you to tell the difference between the two, they look almost identical unless you are truly skilled at identifying grasses. The root system, look at that, they go down 2.5 meters, right? That's super deep roots, which means in the summertime when it's hot and dry and those top couple inches of soil dry out, they don't care. They're still getting moisture from deep down in the soil. And you don't have to fertilize because there's still nutrients down there. So that buffalo grass, it also only grows 18 inches tall, which means you can get away with mowing it about twice a year. Or probably twice a summer. Rather than spending every weekend mowing your Kentucky bluegrass. And, you know, prairie dropseed, beautiful decorative grass. I love using it as edging because it makes for a nice kind of fountainy effect, but it's native as well. So just as nice as the exotic grasses that we like to plant, but you don't have to worry about it escaping and getting out into areas it's not supposed to be in. And you don't have to worry about watering it and fertilizing it and doing all that kind of stuff to it. So again, this is why native plants help to save us time and save us money. I love this picture. This is kind of a tale of two cities example here. So on the left, you have your typical grass. I'm going to guess this is probably sometime late June, July. You know, you've got an oak tree. The oak tree is good. Oak trees support lots of different insect species. That's wonderful. And you have your random rock in the middle of nowhere. But then on the right, so this is obviously a hillside, and they were probably having issues with keeping the grass on there and keeping it looking nice. And so they added a little terrace to it, and the terracing helps to keep the rainwater where it falls. Then they added a whole bunch of native plants in there. I see some butterfly weed and coneflowers. Looks like maybe some prairie dock, something like that in there. But all these nice native flowers in there that look so much prettier and so much greener than that brown grass on the other side. And it's functional. I guarantee you this area is just swarming with native pollinators, butterflies, maybe some native bees, which we'll talk about. You don't need to worry about native bees. But all of these really great pollinators that we're trying to protect while also looking beautiful. So if you have a pond in your neighborhood, you probably also have geese. You probably also have erosion, and a lot of other problems as well. By having grass at the shoreline there, water just sheets across that grass. The grass doesn't really do anything to try and capture the grass, hold it in place, or do anything for it in a positive way. Plus, geese like to be able to walk in and walk out of a pond and be able to see in all directions around them. This is the perfect habitat for them. We have unintentionally created their perfect habitat. So of course we're going to have issues with them. They're going to come, they're going to poop all over the grass and the sidewalks and anywhere else around there. When I was in graduate school, actually as an undergrad, one of my fellow students was doing a research project and came across a paper that showed that goose poop, 100% of the samples that she tested contained antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So that was bacteria that were resistant to what was at the time our last line of defense, antibiotic. Goose feces contained bacteria that were resistant to that. So this isn't really, it's not hygienic. It's not just, we think that it's gross. It's really a problem. And so a way to keep the geese out of these ponds and these areas is quite simply just plant taller plants. If they can't see in every direction as they're walking in and walking out, there could be a coyote or something hiding there. It makes them nervous and they'll go someplace else. They'll find a soccer field or someplace nearby that's got that nice short grass that they like to eat and a clear view for them. So this is an example of a pond that was planted with native plants around the edge. So you can see also way more attractive, in my opinion, than that mowed, eroding lawn going down to that other pond. And again, there's probably going to be lots of birds and butterflies hanging out in here with the coreopsis. We've got is that blazing star maybe? Some Ohio horsemint, also known as wild bergamot. Coneflowers, there's just all kinds of stuff going on in here. And all of these plants are helping to prevent the shoreline from eroding. They're preventing the geese. They're preventing all of the lawn chemicals that people put on their grasses from getting into the pond and causing issues with algae. So really, it solves a lot of problems while also being beautiful. So here you can kind of see again the difference between the two. You see all the erosion going on in the turf grass shoreline as opposed to the native shoreline where all those plants are holding that soil in place. Grass just doesn't do a very good job. But when you have native plants that have long, deep roots that help to prevent the water from picking up speed and sheeting off the surface of the grass very quickly, those plants just really help to buffer the pond from everything that could be flowing into it. So it helps to protect the pond in a number of different ways. This is kind of a funny little thing. This used to be all grass. So this is a park district owned property. There were two trails that kind of intersect here. They had, for some reason, put this little triangle patch of grass in. And the park district every week had to bring out a mower just to mow that little patch. And it was kind of ridiculous. So we suggested that they plant some pollinator-friendly plants in there. So they put a tree in and they put some pollinator-friendly plants. Now they don't have to mow it anymore. It actually saves them time and money because they don't have to bring out the mower just to mow that little stretch anymore. And as people are jogging by or riding their bikes by, Again, I bet it's full of butterflies. So we mentioned pollinators, and every time I do, I get some people who are a little leery about it because they say, well, you know, I don't want to plant things to attract pollinators because I'm allergic to bees, or my kids are allergic to bees. Schools, I've had schools say, oh no, we can't do anything that's going to bring in more bees because we've got too many kids who are allergic. Native bees and even honeybees are very loath to sting. You really have to try to get stung by them, like stepping on them or catching them, which I don't advise doing either one. But bees, their stingers are shaped like a fish hook. So when they sting you, they actually rip off the back part of their abdomen as they fly away. They're going to die. They know this. They don't want to sting you because they're gonna die. So you really have to threaten them, get really close to their hive, whatever, before they're going to try and sting. If they're just going about their business around your flowers, they're not going to bother you. As a matter of fact, the carpenter bee in the lower left-hand corner there, they don't even have stingers. They're like big flying teddy bears. They like go bumping into things all over the place, but they don't even have a stinger. So these are not the guys to worry about. So on the left is a honeybee, which, by the way, is not a native species. When we talk about saving the bees, you know, you see all these big campaigns, save the bees, save the bees. We're not actually talking about honeybees in general. Honeybees are an introduced agricultural animal, just like a pig or a cow would be. Most of them come from Italy or someplace else in Europe, but they're not native. They do a good job pollinating, so we kind of give them a pass on that. But the real pollinators that we need to save are 3,000 to 4,000 species of native bees. On the right is a yellow jacket. A yellow jacket is actually a wasp. These are frequently called bees, mistaken for honeybees. Honeybees are often mistaken for them. But wasps, their stingers are more like a hypodermic needle. They can sting over and over and over again and fly away laughing, and I swear they do. But they are not interested in your flowers. They're actually carnivorous. They're actually meat eaters. They eat other insects. So they are not interested in your flowers. They're the ones that are going to be interested in your can of pop, your bologna sandwich, your bag of chips, whatever else you happen to have out. These are the ones that are going to be flying around the garbage cans because they're going after salt and to some extent the sugar, but they're mostly going after the salt. So they're the ones that are more likely to sting. They don't care about your pollinator garden. All right. So you are more likely to have yellow jackets around a garbage can, for example, than you are your pollinator garden. So you don't have to worry when you put in a pollinator garden, you are at no more risk of being stung. So if you are looking to start with some native plants, these are a good place to start. So Rudbeckia or black-eyed Susans, great starter native. They're very pretty. They look very striking in a garden. Asters or Symphotrichum are great because they are fall blooming plants. So as our migrating pollinators, like our monarch butterflies, are coming back through, flying down to Mexico, they need more food. They need a good food source. And there's not a lot of things that bloom in the fall. So asters are a great thing to plant because it helps those guys fuel up for their journey. Milkweed is another really good one. The flowers, there are 7 native species in Illinois. The flowers of the milkweed provide great nectar sources for lots of different butterfly species, but it's also the host species for monarch butterflies. So host species is where they lay their eggs. So mama monarch will only lay her eggs on a milkweed plant, something in the Asclepias family. So in the picture here, this is swamp milkweed. So swamp milkweed is a great one. It grows maybe about hip height, but we also have butterfly weed, which is that bright orange one, and that one grows to be about knee high. There's also common milkweed, which you'll see growing along the roadside sometimes or out in the forest preserves. That's the one that gets to be like 6 feet tall. So I'd be wary about planting that in a front yard, but if you have space in a backyard, along a fence, something like that, common milkweed is a great one to plant. And Yes, they do have favorites, and I found common milkweed tends to be a favorite among the milkweeds for the butterflies. I don't know if it's because the leaves are just bigger or what, um, but it can get to be a little bit weedy. So make sure wherever you put it is a place where you're okay with it getting real tall and, potentially kind of laying over. And they do spread. Goldenrods, again, be careful with the goldenrods. Some are a little more aggressive than others, but they're another great nectaring plant, as well as host plant. And then a lot of people don't think of trees when we talk native plants, but trees are definitely great host plants. Doug Tallamy, who wrote one of the premier books on gardening with native plants, did a little study where he walked around an oak tree in his yard and counted the number of different insect species he saw there. And it was something like 470 some different species of insects that he saw in his oak tree. And then he walked over to a neighbor's tree that was something not native, and there were like 5 or 6. So oaks really do provide habitat for a large number of native pollinators. But these 5 genus right here account for 75% of the food for all of our native pollinators. So all the bees, all the beetles, all of them, 75% are supported by just these 5 genus of plants. So like I said, asters, there's lots of different types of asters, different types of milkweed, different types of oaks, but these 5 genus support 3/4 of all the insect life that we have in this area. It's crazy. So this is a great place to start. And you can add your natives to your existing landscape. I'm not telling you to go out and tear up your whole front yard and turn the whole thing into a prairie. We live in the suburbs. I mean, we got to be honest here. There are some things that are expected when you live here in the suburbs. So these plants are great to add to your existing landscape, just swapping out something exotic for something native. You have your coreopsis in the upper left-hand corner there with a little bee on it. They're a great plant, lower growing, very striking flowers, just beautiful. And then you've got your butterfly weed there with the orange flowers, yarrow with the white flowers there in the upper right, liatris or blazing star there in the lower left. That's a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. Gets a little bit tall, but those spikes of bright purple flowers are just wonderful. And then in the bottom middle, we've got cardinal flower there. That's a great one for hummingbirds. Hummingbirds love cardinal flower. That's a great one. And then spice bush in the lower right there, that's a nice shrub that you can add. It's got a nice fall color to it. And then it's the host plant for something called the spice bush swallowtail, which is a really nice, it's a nice butterfly that we have. It's kind of a funky looking caterpillar, but again, that's the food source for it. So that's a nice shrub that you can add instead of something invasive like burning bush or whatever. You'll also want to manage your stormwater. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. So for the longest time, we've always treated rain like a waste product. So it falls on our roof. We try to gather it up as quickly as we can and push it off to whatever nearest stream, river, whatever we have nearby, and just get rid of it. It's not a waste product though. We are losing our groundwater sources. So I, for example, live in an unincorporated area. I rely on groundwater for my home's water supply. So I have a well, and if my well goes dry, I'm going to be in big trouble. The city of Joliet recently had to look for a new water supply because their deep aquifers are going dry. So they're actually going to start to be pulling from Lake Michigan now because they don't have enough water left to last them another 10 years for their existing residents. So managing stormwater, finding a way to keep the rain where it falls is a good way to help replenish those aquifers while also helping to prevent flooding downstream. So there's a couple ways to do that. On the left, you can see a rain barrel. So the Conservation Foundation does offer rain barrels for sale. You can order them off our website, and for $5, the company we work with will drop it right on your doorstep. So the rain barrels themselves are $60. So for $65, you could have a rain barrel left at your house. No contact, delivery. It's great. So rain barrels just hook up to your downspouts. You just cut off your downspout. You can get a little flexible hose like you see there to attach to the bottom of your downspout, and then it goes right into the rain barrel. They're completely sealed, so mosquitoes can't get in. You don't have to worry about having the standing water there breeding mosquitoes. And then you can hook your hose up or a watering can underneath it, and you've got 55 gallons of free water every time it rains to water your plants with. On the other side, we also have a rain garden. Now, your mileage may vary with this. Check your local ordinances and regulations. Now, I know not everybody can do this legally. Depends on where your easements are and all of that. But if you can do it, this homeowner had this low spot in their yard that was constantly muddy. So water, because there was that natural depression in the ground, it would collect water, it would be stagnant, it would be muddy, impossible to mow, grass wouldn't grow, you know the story. So instead, they dug it actually a little bit deeper to encourage more water from the yard to go there, and then they planted a collection of plants that like it wet. Now, not everything there is native. You can see the lilies and the hosta and all of that, but there's enough native plants that are in there that those long roots help to direct the water down into the ground. So rather than ending up with a bunch of stagnant water, that area still stays wet, but you don't have the standing water for the mosquitoes to breed in. So we've got water-loving plants that are in there that are okay if it dries up for a little bit. Again, these are native plants. They know what our conditions are like. So, but when it does rain, they're thrilled and they suck up all that water and they help to prevent that standing water. So rain gardens are a great way to help solve issues of water, wet, muddy areas in your yard. There are a couple of other rain barrel sales that are coming up. Kane County currently has one going on. You can order until May 21st with no contact pickup on May 27th or home delivery for an extra charge. If you are a City of Joliet water customer, as I mentioned, because Joliet's running low on water, if you get your water from the City of Joliet, they are offering half-price rain barrels. They're subsidizing the cost of rain barrels. And you can get those delivered to your home. So instead of $65, they're now $35. Or if you are near Ottawa, Ottawa also is having a rain barrel sale. You can order until May 19th with pickup on May 23rd. We have almost 1,000 certified properties through our Conservation at Home program. So again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a program that the Conservation Foundation has developed where we will come out to your home, walk around your yard with you, and talk about native plants. If you are just getting started, you have no idea what to plant where, that's okay. You give us a call, we come out, there is no charge, and we'll walk around your yard with you and talk about what native plants can go where a rain barrel would work, where you could put a rain garden, that kind of thing. If you already have native plants in your yard, you've got a variety of native plants, you're already doing something with your stormwater, you are taking care of our little animal friends through bird feeders or whatever, then maybe you're already ready for certification. And at that point, we do ask for a $50 donation, but then you get that lovely little sign there to put up in your yard that tells all your neighbors, hey, I know what I'm doing. And then you can be certified as part of our program. And there's lots of other little perks that go along with that, including a really awesome Facebook page where Conservation at Home members post lots of pictures of their yards, ask questions about plants, about hey, what is this, that kind of thing. So there's a couple of different landscaping methods. There's probably a ton of different landscaping methods. I am not a landscape architect, but I kind of know my plants. So there's kind of two schools of thought that I like to talk about. One is the native but neat. So in this case, this homeowner has taken an existing bed from their yard, they expanded it a little bit, and they just filled it with native plants. It's mulched. The plants are planted in drifts, which means little clusters, so that it looks intentional. So for someone who doesn't know their plants driving by, this looks like a perfectly manicured flower bed, even though it's all native. Then we have the wild and free, the prairie planting, where you have a large collection of different plants planted close together. You don't need to worry about mulch in this case because all these plants are keeping the weeds down by themselves. We've got a nice mix of grasses and flowers, and this is great. This too is a way to help keep your plants in control, reduce the amount of time and energy that you have to spend taking care of everything. Because again, they keep the weeds down by themselves. They can outcompete the weeds. And they don't require water. They don't require fertilizer. They just kind of take care of themselves. You might have to pull the occasional weed, but for the most part, this is sort of a self-sustaining system here. We also have Conservation at Work, which is our sister program for non-residential land. So any business, church, school that has native plants out there could be eligible for a Conservation at Work sign. Here's a list that we have of current Conservation at Work members. So probably a lot of familiar names on there for you. So I love this example. This is a library in, I believe it's Aurora. And they had recently remodeled, and they put this great glass rotunda in there, and they put lots of chairs in front of it, and they couldn't figure out why nobody was using them. Nobody was spending time in the chair. And I mean, really, why would they? Who wants to look at a big mass of dead grass? So instead, they contacted us and said, well, what can we do instead? We helped them turn it into this. So now it's full of native plants. It's got a bird feeder there, so there's probably lots of birds and butterflies and other insects, maybe some chipmunks, whatever, coming through there. And now there's practically a line to sit in the chairs. Like, people can't get enough of them because it's so much nicer to look out at this rather than just a big dead patch of lawn. Industrial areas. Here in Will County, we have a ton of them. You got the big warehouses with just an empty grass lot next to it. The owners have to spend a ton of money every summer mowing this every week. What if instead we did this? We fill it with native plants, grasses, flowers. I would much rather drive past this going into work every day than an empty grass lawn. So instead, now they have this. They don't have to worry about mowing it. They don't have to worry about treating it. All the chemicals that they would use to treat it are not going into our rivers because they don't have to do anything to it. So it saves them time, saves them money, and makes a much nicer view. So here in Will County, how are we helping? Well, Prairie Park in Frankfort was desperately in need of some restoration work. There was native plants put in when they installed the pond, but the village stopped paying to maintain it. So when they did that, all the weeds started coming in. And so now we are a few years into the restoration work, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. People are out there walking all the time, taking family pictures, and it really, really looks a lot nicer now that we're getting the weeds out and helping the flowers to come back. We're also helping homeowners associations care for their ponds. So as we mentioned, getting those native plant buffers up around the edges of the ponds helps to prevent geese and prevent algae and erosion and all those nasty things. And then we're also helping residents make better landscape choices through our Conservation at Home program. So again, as I mentioned, these webinars are being sponsored by the Conservation Foundation. If you're interested in getting more involved, you can become a member. At the end of this webinar, you'll be taken back to our website. There's a ton of information on there. Please feel free to explore the website. And if you feel so inclined, click that button to drop us a donation or become a member. You can also visit our McDonald Farm in Naperville or our Dixon Merced Farm in Montgomery. The McDonald Farm in Naperville is a working organic farm. 49 of the 60 acres are currently being farmed. And I mean currently, like the farmers are there right now, working on getting those plants in the ground, taking care of the fields. And it's phenomenal. You can buy a share, although not this year because we are completely sold out for the first time, I think, ever. We have completely sold out of farm shares. But for next year, You can buy a share of the farm produce, although we are still doing some pop-up sales. So any extra produce that we have, we'll do like a little farm stand, usually once a week throughout the summer. We set up in the driveway. So you can come get some of the produce grown on the farm that way. The Dixon Merst farm in Montgomery is a historic farm that has been restored, and you can see the picture there in the lower right. That was taken at the Dixon Merst farm. But they have lots of events there throughout the year. Again, I'm not sure how those events will be affected by what's currently going on, but we'll see. But it's a really cool place anyway. We do camps out there and all kinds of stuff. You can also follow us on social media. That'll let you know when we're doing more webinars like this one, as well as all the other awesome stuff that we're doing. And you can also get your yard certified. So you can drop us a line and we can help you work on getting your yard certified. So with that, that is what I have. There is my information again, my email address, my phone number. And at this point, I will take any questions you might have. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free. Let me pull up my chat box there too. All right, so I can see if anybody has any questions for me. So I hope you enjoyed this. We do have a number of other webinars available for you. Is there something like this in DeKalb County? Catherine, good question. Unfortunately, I don't know all of our franchisees off the top of my head. If you send me an email, I can ask and put you in touch with the right person. I know Jim from our office has gone to DeKalb on a few occasions for various things, but just drop me an email and I will find out for you. Emily, are native plants more prone to spreading than non-native? No, they are not. As a matter of fact, I would say almost the exact opposite, because native plants have things that are able to keep their numbers and their populations in check. So they're not quite as prone. Now, that's not to say there aren't some natives that aren't aggressive. I mentioned milkweed, goldenrod earlier. There are certain types of goldenrod that are native and can get very aggressive. Indian grass is another one that can get very aggressive and can spread itself a lot. So you kind of have to be careful where you put it. But for the most part, no. Native plants are actually less prone to spreading. For example, I've got wild ginger, a patch of wild ginger under some pine trees in my yard. And I planted, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 of them, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And while they have spread a little bit, they're not out of control. They're not spreading to other parts of my yard. You know, they're filling in what I would consider to be pretty nicely. Is a big box nursery an okay place to buy native plants, or is there a better source of plants/seeds? Fabulous question, Kristen. I'm so glad you asked me that. Big box nurseries are not a good place to buy natives for several reasons. Number one, most of the plants that they carry are not going to be the wild type natives. They're going to be nativars or cultivars of native plants. Cultivars have been shown in, I would say, maybe at least 75% of the time to not be as beneficial as the wild type. Also, big box nurseries, regardless of what they tell you, all of their plants have been sprayed with insecticides. So we're planting these things to bring in the natives and we're killing them because they've been sprayed with insecticides. And the employees at the big box store may tell you they don't spray them. I guarantee you their growers do. I raise monarch butterflies in the summer, and I'm part of some crazy monarch groups on Facebook, and it seems like every week somebody posts that they bought milkweed at a big box store, fed it to their caterpillars, and all their caterpillars died. It happens constantly. So I cannot stress enough, do not buy your natives at a big box store. Better places to buy them. It depends on where you live. Possibility Place in Monee, Illinois is fabulous. They have some of the best plants. It's where a lot of our plant sale plants came from. We just recently wrapped up our plant sale. So Possibility Place is fabulous. Is where I try to buy all of my natives from. They really know their stuff there, and all of their stock is wonderful. Prairie Nursery and Prairie Moon Nursery are online. I want to say they're based out of Wisconsin, Minnesota, something like that. But you can buy them online and have them mailed to you. I've got an order actually coming from Prairie Moon that I'm very excited about. And let's see, where else? Natural area natives, natural garden natives, something like that in the Naperville, Aurora, St. Charles area. That's another good place to get them from as well. Off the top of my head, those are the best places that I can think of. Pizzo Nurseries out in Leland. I'm not sure if they sell to residential homeowners or if they're like commercial only. They're another one though that you could. But Possibility Place has a great website, and I think they're shipping now as well. So you can always check them out. Those are my recommendations on where to buy them from. Any other questions? Those have been really, really good questions. Thank you so much. All right. If you happen to think of anything later and you need to know, you want to know more, please feel free to drop me an email. I'm happy to answer emails regardless of where you are from. So if that's it, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, and hope you watch more of our webinars, take a look at our website, and we hope to see you again soon. So thanks so much. Stay safe. Bye.